This video lesson previews the graphing portion of inequalities. Beginning on slide 22, we'll start with solution sets and then go into a review on how to graph inequalities. So a solution to an inequality is different from an equation because it's not a single number as we've seen in the past. It's actually more than one value. So right now, this graph is modeling -5 and all the numbers greater than -5, including -5. So in order to read this, it would be the solution set is all numbers greater than or equal to -5. The translation would be -5 is less than or equal to x. So x can be -4, -3, -2, and so on, as long as it's larger or equal to -5. Slide 230 demonstrates how there can be more than one solution in an inequality. So take the example r is greater than 10. Which of the followings are solutions? Well, this slide goes through and tests all of them. 5 is not greater than 10, so therefore it can't be a solution. 10 is not greater than 10, can't be a solution. 15 is greater than 10, and so is 20. So therefore, the solution set is 15 and 20. And there can be much more that would make this correct. However, out of these 4 given solutions, the only 2 that stand true for R would be 15 and 20. Slide 231 models another example. So 30 is greater than or equal to 4D, and there's a solution set given of 3 through 8. So that's 6 numbers, and it's tested in 6 different. The first one tests out 3. So 30 is greater than or equal to 4 times 3, if D stands for 3. Well, that's 12. 30 is, in fact, greater than 12. So 3 is a solution. The next one tests out 4. Well, 30 is greater than 16, so it's a solution. The next one tests out 5. 30 is greater than or equal to 20. That works. The fourth one tests out 6, which 30 is greater than or equal to 24. Then we test 7, which works. And 8 does not work because 30 is no longer greater than or equal to the second number, 32. Slide 232 is an important review, so I'd like you to write in nice large capital letters "important" at the bottom of slide 232. Just to refresh, when graphing inequalities, the circle is very important. You can either have an open circle or a closed circle. When you have an open circle, it means that the number graphed right below it is not part of the solution. So an open circle goes along with the symbols less than or greater than. On the other hand, a closed circle includes the number that's just below the circle. So those are your less than or equal to, greater than, equal to. So the symbols that go with a closed circle have the equal sign with it. So open circle, less than, greater than. Closed circle includes your equal to. Less than, equal to, greater than, equal to. Graphing inequalities can be much easier when the variable is placed on the left side of the symbol. And the reason is because if you see these 2 less than symbols, it shows that the arrow is pointing to the left because this is the tip of the arrow and it's pointing in the left direction. On the other hand, when the variable is on the left side, the greater than symbols will show an arrow that points to the right because this models the tip of an arrow. This will only work when the variable is on the left of the equation. So I like to rewrite any of my, inequalities. So I write all of my inequalities with the variable on the left so that I know which way my arrow is pointing. Slide 234 asks, what if the variable isn't on the left? Well, there's two options. You can do the opposite direction of where the symbol is pointing, or you can just rewrite and put the variable on the left and flip the symbol to the other direction. So let's say that you have 4 is less than x. The variable is on the right side, not the left. Well, right now, I can do the opposite where my symbol is pointing to the left, so my arrow will point to the right. Or I think it's a lot less complicated if you just rewrite the inequality so that now the variable's on the left, I flip the sign, and now I know that my arrow is going to point to the right when I graph it because the tip of the arrow is facing in the right direction. So let's copy down the same example that I used in the prior slide. X is greater than 4. There's 3 questions that you should ask. What is the number in the inequality? The number is 4. What kind of circle should be used? In order to determine that, you need to figure out if it's an open or a closed. Well, this does not have the equal sign under it, so therefore, without the equal sign, I have to use an open circle. And in what direction does the line go? Well, my variable is on the left, which means my arrow here is pointing to the right. So when I go to graph, I know that my arrow is going to be pointing to the right, just like the inequality symbol is pointing. So now I've determined that I have an open circle and I have an arrow that's pointing to the right, and the last part is to have my number line and to place the circle above the number in the inequality. So the number in the inequality is 4, and so my arrow with the circle is going to go above the 4. And so right now I have my graph of the inequality x is greater than 4. Slide 236 models another example. X is less than 5. So the variable is written on the left. The number is 5. And is it going to be an open or a closed circle? Well, it doesn't have the equal sign under it, so it's going to be an open circle. So if I look here, I have an open circle that I'm going to have above the number 5. Next step is to figure out the way that the arrow goes. Well, in this case, the arrow is on the left-hand side, so I'm going to look at the tip of the inequality symbol, and it's pointing to the left. So therefore, my arrow is going to be facing the left. And so the last step is to draw a line connecting the arrow and the circle. And this does not have to be at -2.5. It just means that x is anything that's smaller than 5. So the line represents all of these numbers, and it can continue on forever to infinity, as long as the variable is less than 5. We're going to skip slide 238 and slide 239. You can read through them if you'd like to, but I want to model slide 240 with you. So graphing the inequality, x is greater than 2. So first of all, open circle because it doesn't have the equal sign. The number is the 2. And it's pointing, the variable's on the left, the arrow is pointing to the right. So I have an open circle. The arrow is pointing to the right hand side, and it goes above the number 2. So my inequality is graphed. The next example, -3 is greater than or equal to x. Well, it has the equal sign, so it has to be a closed circle. The variable is not on the left here, so I have two options. I can either look which way the arrow is pointing now and flip it, or I can just rewrite the inequality as x on the left, and then I have to flip the sign and -3 on the right, and so now this shows my arrow is pointing to the left. So my closed circle above the -3 with an arrow pointing to the left is the proper graph. Please write the word January at the top of slide 241 and then pause the video and work out number 1 and number 2 on your own. So number 1 is going to be a closed circle because it has an equal sign. The variable's on the left, and this shows it pointing to the right, and it's above -3. So I should have a closed circle pointing to the right above -3. If you did that, you are correct. The next one, variables on the left, that's good. That shows that my arrow's going to point to the left. In this case, it's an open circle because there is no equal sign, and I'm above the number 4. So open circle above the 4 pointing to the left. If you had these two, you're correct. Slide 242 is now going the opposite way. You have a graph and you need to identify the inequality. Well, the arrow always goes with the variable. So whatever the arrow is on, you place your variable above it. And then the second term is going to be the number that's shown above the circle. The last step is to figure out the way that the arrow is pointing is to the left, so I need to have a symbol that's pointing to the left, that's the less than sign, and my circle is closed, which means I have to have an equal sign. So x is less than or equal to 5. Number 2, the number that I'm starting with is -1, so I'm going to put a -1 above the circle. And then I said whatever represents the arrow is actually going to be your variable or your unknown. So above the arrow I put an x. And then the middle part, I have to figure out what my symbol is. Well, right now my variable is not on the left. So I can either do the opposite of the direction the arrow is pointing, or I think it's easier if you rewrite the inequality. So you have x on the left now and -1 on the right, and then I can see that my arrow is pointing to the right. So then therefore I have to create my arrow pointing to the right, and it's a closed circle, so it has the equal to sign, so x is greater than or equal to -1. On your own, you're going to complete 243 and 244 and then stop. You're finished with the video preview.